We are here at the 2018 California Democratic Convention with my main man, Pat Harris here. You had to fight to get up there, Pat. It almost didn't happen. Why don't you tell us what transpired in this whole fight?
Well, it's interesting because there are qualifications to be able to speak, to be on the ballot. We met the qualifications. We received a notice that despite the fact we met the qualifications, we were not going to be allowed. The short version of it is I told them that wasn't going to fly. I explained to them that if they wanted to continue with this, we had the lawsuit drawn up, and we went through an appeals process. They were doing it on a Wednesday night. I told them that Thursday morning we'd be on the steps of the courthouse, the San Clemente courthouse, at 8 o'clock in the morning with the lawsuit. So Wednesday night they overturned it. They backed down. We got on the ballot.
That's awesome. And, you know, I want to talk about this for a second because you were very fortunate enough to get on the ballot today.
I was.
Several candidates were not. I believe 7 to 9, all because they fell short of fundraising. How do we change this in the Democratic Party going forward when it's not all about super PACs and money?
Well, it's a great point because, you know, we claim that we're the party of inclusion. You know, that's what we always talk about. The Democratic Party is excuse me, my voice is, I'm losing my voice. The Democratic Party is the party of inclusion. Yet, I can tell you two candidates, David Hildebrand and Allison Hartson, who are out campaigning every day, working every day, raising money, and they were not allowed on the ballot. That was absolutely criminal. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I don't understand why we call ourselves a party of inclusion, yet all we try to do is exclude people from the democratic process. That's really upsetting, and I think that in order to change it, I mean, frankly, I think we're going to have to change the leadership.
I hear you. Let me ask you a question. Let me give you a hypothetical.
Sure.
You win the election, day one. What does Senator Pat Harris do?
I'll walk across the floor and I sign the Bernie Sanders Medicare for All bill.
Really?
Yes. First thing we're going to do.
That's awesome.
There's one Senator Harris who signed it already. There's going to be a second one.
I heard that today. I thought that was great. Well, let me ask you another question. We saw you in a couple shows, a couple progressive shows over the last month. What is your number one issue?
Well, the number one issue is that covers everything is getting corporate money out of politics. That's got to be the thing that we have to focus on first and foremost, because corporate donations control everything from every other issue: healthcare, environmental protection, the NRA. All those things are directly related to corporate donations. So there are a lot of important issues, but the one issue that covers everything is corporate money. We have to get corporate money out of politics. But as far as a specific issue, excuse me again, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
As far as specific issue, we have to deal with income inequality in this country. We have a serious problem when people have to work 2 to 3 jobs just to pay the basics. We're not talking about paying for vacations or paying for an extra car. We're talking about people working 2 or 3 jobs just to pay for the basics. That's got to stop.
Well, we have 2 other progressive candidates. Some of them have a grasp on some of the grassroots. You're in line with a lot of your views on both these progressive candidates. We also have Dianne Feinstein, who's been in office for a while, and Kevin De Leon, who's somewhat of an establishment candidate. What are you doing that sets yourself apart in your plan to win the Senate race?
Well, I think there's 2 things. First of all, I have a record of 24 years of fighting for people. I've fought for people who didn't have a voice. For 24 years of my life as a civil rights and criminal defense attorney. That's what I've done. What I want to do in the Senate is exactly what I've done for the last 24 years. I want to give a voice to the voiceless. That goes to the second point, which is for us to win, we have to get out and talk to people who are not getting heard. It's so easy to sit in the Los Angeles echo chamber and go talk to our friends and go to the meetings and all reaffirm, pat ourselves in the back for being progressives. That's not what's going to win this election. I have been up and down the valley. I've been up in the North Country, the deserts, and not just once. I mean, I've been 2, 3, 4 times. In Chico, they're getting sick of me. They're going to file a motion to keep me out of Chico if I don't quit going there. That's how we're going to get people, though. We've got to get the working men and women who are not being listened to, and that's how I'm going to win this election.
Oh, that sounds great. I can never get sick of Pat Harris, let's say that much. Let me ask you another question. What are your stance on cannabis?
I am an extraordinarily strong supporter of cannabis. We have developed in this country the reefer madness mentality that somehow or another cannabis is 2 guys sitting in a basement smoking a joint.
Yeah.
That's not what cannabis is. Cannabis is a plant that has incredible medical value. We need to recognize that, and we need to not only legalize it nationwide, but we need to use it as an economic tool to charge taxes on, to help pay for education, help pay for infrastructure. Cannabis is and has the potential to be the next largest growth industry. And I tell you who recognizes it, that's Big Pharma, and
Yes.
they're moving in on it. We have to make sure that we allow the small businesses, the medium-sized businesses, they're the ones who've been in the business for a while. We have to take care of them because Big Pharma should not be allowed to take over this market. But yeah, we got to legalize cannabis nationwide. That's a huge issue.
It is.
It needs to be on the radar much, much more.
I always said it should be. You're a civil rights lawyer.
Yes.
How do you stand on bail reform?
Bail reform is one of my 7 points that I think we need to do in terms of reforming the criminal justice system. I can tell you stories as a criminal defense attorney. I can tell you a story, for example, when I first started out as a public defender in Nashville. I had a client, he was in a 7-Eleven, he stole about $5 worth of bologna. The judge in that particular court felt like bail should be about $5,000.
For $5 worth of bologna.
$5 worth of bologna. In order for him to get out, he would have had to pay $500. He didn't have that at all. So what you saw is in order for him to get any kind of justice, because the DA was offering a ridiculous amount of jail time, he had to sit in a cell. He couldn't make bail. He ends up losing his apartment. He ends up losing basically his job. He ends up losing his family to a certain degree. All over $5 worth of bologna. And it's absolutely ridiculous that we take bail as a punishment. It's supposed to, the only time there should be bail is somebody's a danger to the community. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason that we should have bail. Yet we do it as a money, based on money and how much you can afford. That's so wrong.
How does bail reform and the issue of bail affect the taxpayers?
Well, that's a great question because you see what we have in California, which is an entire prison industry. Mm-hmm. You're seeing that the taxpayers are paying for people to sit there who are not found guilty of anything.
Yeah.
They're just been charged.
Yeah.
In fact, the estimates go for anywhere, depending on a particular time, of 40 to 70% of people in local jails are there without having been convicted of anything.
Yeah.
So you're talking about taxpayers who are being forced to pay for that for people who very likely are going to be maybe found not guilty or get sentences that release them. It's a really, really huge issue. It's a drain on taxpayers. It's ridiculous. But we have for-profit prisons.
Yes.
And the for-profit prisons love it because it fills beds and makes them a profit.
I take it you're against for-profit prisons.
Hugely against for-profit prisons. It's one of the best things the Obama administration did was get rid of for-profit prisons. Of course, the Trump administration, which reverses anything Obama did, they reversed it now.
Well, let's talk really quickly about the state of the Democratic Party today, especially when it comes to leadership. Do you think we can afford, as Democrats, to continue to be bipartisan with an administration like Trump's?
We can't afford to be bipartisan at any point. And let me just explain why I'm running. I feel like there is a time that we have to be bipartisan. I feel like there is a time we have to work across the aisle. I feel like there is a time where you compromise. For the last 9 years in this country, the Republican Party has refused to compromise on anything, anything we brought up. To continue to talk about compromising is beating our heads against the wall. It's ridiculous. It's time to fight. As an attorney, I know when you plead a case, and I know when you go to trial. We need to be going to trial. We got to fight these people because there is no bipartisan solution at this point. I'm being told I have to go.
All right.
Sorry.
Pat Harris, the only grassroots candidate for Senate on the ballot here at the 2018 Democratic Convention. Thank you so much, Pat.
Thank you. I appreciate the interview.